This video is going to be a quick guide on how to change the suspension arm, in this case an upper one on a Passat B5, but this also applies to Audi A4 B5s, Audi A6 C6s, and C5s, and Audi A4 C6s as well. The procedure is very similar for the later Audis, but there are some detail differences. The first thing to do is to make sure that you've identified the arm that's at fault and to buy a very high quality replacement. In this case I've bought a genuine item from TPS, but you can also get a Lemforder one with the Audi logo scraped off. This will be adequate. It's inadequate to buy other brands or non-genuine ones, as these basically will not work correctly and have very short surface life. The next thing to do is to use some spray and to spray this top bolt. You should do this really a week or so, once a day, a week or so of the job. Soak this bolt. So you should really be spraying this for 7 days over a week. Now I know this bolt should undo fairly easily because it was renewed about a year ago and greased when fitting. The next thing you need to do is to measure your ride height. This is from the top of the arch to where a particular datum point on the wheel. We could make that particular datum point the centre of the wheel arch, so we can make that 38.5 centimetres, so 39 centimetres. We'll be using that piece of information later. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut, and we'll see wheel off. Obviously you'll jack the car using the appropriate jacking point and support the car with an axle stand, or you can of course use a lift if you have access to one. The nut should always undo fairly easily off these bolts, but the bolt may become seized in here. There's some precautions to note when removing this bolt. Always make a note of the difference between here and here. If you're turning this end and this end isn't turning, you're going to snap the bolt. You need to work the bolt backwards and forwards until this end starts turning with this end. This may take a significant amount of time, possibly up to an hour. You can try heating this element gently, but be careful because these links have rubber boots that will become damaged. Now if you're renewing the upper arms, then that obviously isn't a problem, but the most important thing is to remember this end will turn always. Might be stiff, but this end will always turn. If this end isn't turning at the same time, then the bolt is seized. You can free it using shock and heat. You mustn't try and pry these parts open. That's expressly forbidden in the workshop manual. Because it can cause fracturing, which can essentially kill you. So this bolt turns freely. So once it's turning freely, it will just pull out, no trouble at all. But always remember, don't turn this more if this isn't turning. Work it forwards and backwards until the whole bolt starts turning. You might be able to see it through the slits starting to turn at the beginning. Once the whole bolt starts turning, then it will eventually then spin, and you should be able to gently tap it out. But don't try tapping it out until it's turning, because you'll just cause it to seize more inside, and you may end up having to buy a whole new unit. Now that the bolt is out, it comes to removing these arms. The simplest way is to use a soft-faced hammer and tap outwards. This may not work in your case. You can also use a ball joint separator with a scissor type with a nut underneath to push upwards. This may work in your case. The best thing to do is to keep trying. Depends on whether you need to renew these or not. If not, be as gentle as possible. If you don't have to renew them, then just sort of push away. In this case, I know that this assembly has been apart around a year ago, so I can simply just knock upwards. And the next thing to do is to, if you are not renewing arms, check for splits or cuts in these ball joint gaiters here. Check for free play. Now this arm I know is bad, and the reason I'm renewing this, but there is a free play in this ball joint, but you can feel there is still not any free play in that one. That moves us on to the next step, which is to undo this bottom nut. What we'll be doing is undoing this nut, removing that, then undoing these top nuts. The assembly should come out. I've removed this washer, which sits up on this peg here. This can be discarded. You can remove this bolt here. There's one bolt here, one bolt there, and one bolt there that need to be removed. The leg will then, once making sure to cover this suspension member, steering arm, so it doesn't get damaged, this leg will just simply come out of the way. As you can see, the suspension leg has come out quite easily. I'm going to be changing this arm. You can see why the leg needs to be removed completely. The bolt won't withdraw sufficiently to enable it to do so. It's important to make a measurement of the distance between 2 points here, so that when this bolt is tightened up, it's done so in the laden position, otherwise the rubber boot will be damaged. So I'm now going to make that measurement. And in this case it should be quite straightforward because they both sit at the same height. There is a measurement given for default settings in the workshop manual as well, which can be referred to. I've just checked the workshop manual and there's a specified dimension of 47mm from this point to the top of the arm. So I've adhered to that. It does sit slightly higher than the other one, but I suspect this one may have sunken over some time. Set it at that height and then tightened the nut and bolt up. New nut and bolt here. I'm now going to torque that down, and then we'll place the suspension leg back in the vehicle. I've loosely reassembled this. The bolts are in at the top and torqued to the spec. This bolt is in, and I'm just going to place the nut on it with a little bit of Loctite. Really should renew this, but I forgot to order this nut and bolt. It's really important to clean these ball joints up as much as possible, so you can slide them in and out of the housing, this wheel bearing housing, as easily as possible. Again, clean the insides of this and clean where the bolt runs. You want it so you can just push it together really easily. Before you reassemble it, you can use some anti-seize grease. This should make disassembly in the future easier. So it's a really good idea to get. Obviously, this one's brand new, but this one I'm going to clean off, clean the insides out, and clean the whole out. So really, it should just fly back together and come apart again in the future easily. Because this needs to come off to do the CV joint, remove the drive shaft, lower arms, shock absorber, spring, a whole verisimilitude of jobs need this pinch bolt to come apart. Always renew that pinch bolt, and the nut. Yes, it's about £5 to do so, but it's absolutely worthwhile. And always fit it with lots of anti-seize. I've reinserted and greased up this assembly here. It's important to note that this nut and the associated bolt can be torqued whilst the vehicle is off the ground. This one must be torqued with the vehicle on the ground, and the top 3 bolts can be torqued with the vehicle off the ground. So it's just important to do that one up in laden position. Other way you can do this is by placing a jack under the hub and raising the wheel hub up to the point it would be at which we measured beforehand in the first part of the video.